Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, The Role of RFID in Scaling Digital Twins for Smart Supply Chains. I'm Bethany Dean, the Media and Communication Specialist here at AIM. I am pleased to be joined by industry experts Patty Blessing from Zebra Technologies, Anu Kulshrestha from Enantix, Mark Brown from ID Integration, and Chris Tague from Seagull for today's panel discussion. First, let me quickly go over antitrust laws. It is the policy of the AIM to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And now a little bit about AIM. AIM is the Industry Association for Automatic Identification and Data Capture Technologies. We serve as a hub for quality resources covering all types of barcode, RFID, and mobile computing information. We also foster new auto ID innovations that stimulate market growth. We encourage you to get involved. If you would like additional information, you can reach out to us at info@aimglobal.org. And then a few other housekeeping notes. All registrants are muted upon entering the webinar, but we still want you to participate. To send a question, select the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Also, a recording of the webinar will be available in the coming days to those that have registered. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Patty.
Thanks, Bethany. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Today's presentation is going to be a panel format. So I want to get started by having each of our presenters give a little background on themselves. First, we'll have Chris Tague, who is Head of Industry Solutions at Seagull. Tell us a little bit about himself. Chris?
Thanks, Patty. Yep, like you said, Head of Industry Solutions. I nearly said Director too, but at Seagull Solutions, Seagull Software. I've been in the RFID industry for over 20 years. We've been, in my career, we've been working with RFID across supply chain, through retail, through manufacturing, and through food. So happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Chris. And Anu from Enantix. We've got the president and CEO here. Lots to tell us about.
Yes. Hi there. My name is Anurag Kulshrestha, nickname Anu, and I'm the owner of Enantix. I have been in the industry almost 26 years, 27th year running. We do lots of IoT solutions, GIS, digital twin, and so trying to be on the emerging technologies, and we provide solutions to US federal, commercial, state, and as well as some agencies in the different countries.
Thanks, Anu. And Mark Brown, Director of Business Development at ID Integrations.
Good afternoon or morning, or depending on the region of the world you're in today. I've been in the industry for 26 years. Really started out on the pointy end of the spear, doing integrations as an engineer, and worked my way through various roles in the business. I was one of the subject matter experts that wrote the RFID Plus exam. I've written a few books in support of that, and also the International RFID Institute exams. Seen lots of deployments and done all kinds of stuff with the technology, ranging from defense to retail and manufacturing, and a little bit of everything. Happy to be here and welcome.
Thanks, Mark. And finally, I'm Patty Blessing. I am the sales manager for RFID engagement for retail and hospitality at Zebra. I will be hosting the panel today and look forward to talking about a lot of different topics, most specifically, though, the role that RFID plays in digital twins in the supply chain. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. Bethany, do you want to go ahead? Thanks. First, just to kind of recap, digital twins are virtual representations of physical objects, systems, or processes that enable real-time monitoring, simulation, and analysis. This concept has been around for a while, but it's really gained significant traction lately due to advancements in IoT, data analytics, and artificial intelligence. And while digital twins may not have the same cachet as AI, is actually used in many, many different ways. Chris, I thought we'd get started with just a fun story you shared with me about how digital twins have been used in a kind of rather unique application. Can you share?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a few definitions like you touched on of digital twins. Different ways to think about a digital twin. But someone who outside of the industry had asked me, what is a digital twin when they saw the topic of this, and I was trying to find a good example, and I recalled an article I'd read about the Titanic, and the Titanic, notoriously difficult to get to study, and extremely dangerous, as we all know. And so what a bunch of scientists did come together and took all of digital photos from every angle, sonar readings, radar readings, put it all together and created a digital representation of the Titanic. And with that, it really allows them to, look at what happened to the Titanic, and then run simulations on it to understand, okay, did it go down because of these issues? Where was everyone seated at the time? Things like that. And so you really get an understanding without the danger associated with being, underwater. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting use case, an interesting way to describe what a digital twin is.
Absolutely. And Anu, when we did this presentation previously at RFID Journal, you also shared a unique example of digital twins and how they're used. Do you want to share?
Yes. So we are working with the different clients for the digital twin, and I'll use the two examples, maybe three examples. One is for the morgue, where we are tracking the dissident or the bodies. So we have the floor plans, and we can see the real-time counts of bodies in a different coolers, and when the surge is happening in one area, and how the director, which is the medical examiner, can plan it out. And we have the 18 different rooms, and we in the coolers we got the RFID readers. Outside we have it, and we are tracking them, right? And so lots of real-time data. As you know, what Patty told, that digital twin is the physical model's virtual representation, right? So if we just take the photo, or just we have the BIM model, business building information management, it will not be good enough. RFID in the real time feeding the data. Different other sensors are feeding the data. And all these sensors data, including RFID, they act very pivotal role in creating all the efficiency modeling what if scenarios. And very quickly, I'm gonna share my screen without giving away too much, without taking too much of time. At least you can see how the different representation may look like, right? So just give me a minute. If I have a share, okay. Send request. Bethany, if you can approve the request. For example, I'm trying to share. Okay, yeah, got it. Thank you. So here, if you see, this is at the Detroit Water Sewerage Department, City of Detroit. We are doing the digital twin. It's a Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, DWSD digital twin, which we are doing it. So we have, thousands of sensors data coming in the real time, the whole city wide. And all the RFID data is there, pressure gauge, rainfall, outfalls, all this data is coming, and we are doing lots of forecasting and modeling on the basis of that. So RFID and all the IoT sensors are providing very cornerstone sensor technology. And very quickly, this is another one we are doing it, and lots of things are there in the IoT, but I don't want to just take too much of our time at this time. But so idea here it is RFID not only feeding the real time. I can give you some other examples, such as, let's say you are supplying, like I'm talking to Dole, which is the fresh fruits and vegetables company, right? And is a food, and it remains to be fresh, and its supply chain is there. And when the lettuce are being cut, when they are being washed, when they are being packaged, sorted, and palletized and going to the coolers and so on, it's a whole supply chain is there. And RFID providing the real-time data, so we can find out when the surge happening, when the depression happening, optimizing the routes itself, and rerouting if, let's say, accident happens somewhere, and space optimization, and so on. So many use cases, applications in the real time we are working on for different clients, and we'll talk throughout this webinar for that, Patty.
Great. Thanks so much, Anu, and thanks for the slide. I think it's very good way to envision this digital twin concept. Digital twins, as you mentioned, Anu, have been used in manufacturing and processes, but today we're seeing digital twins used in many different verticals, whether it's retail, healthcare, manufacturing, research, that just to name a few. But again, we want to focus today on on the role that RFID plays. And RFID, as Anu described, provides that real-time data collection about the physical to update the digital twin, and then provide that ability to then do those simulations and analytics. So let's take a little bit deeper look into digital twins and RFID and get into some of the applications. Mark, let's start with you. How does RFID technology create real-time digital models of supply chains?
I mean, RFID from the beginning has always been, you consider the various places RFID is used, right? Security companies use it to make sure that guards go past certain checkpoints at certain times of the day. Retail store owners use it to make sure that their goods are being returned to the right store, they were sold for the right amount, warranties are covered. In manufacturing, we're using it to track parts or batches or lots as they move through manufacturing. At the end of the day, there's 1,000,001 use cases for the technology, but what they all have in common is that they're all about visibility. And the digital twin is absolutely 100% visibility, right? You want to be able to see, tangibly look at what is going on within your four walls or possibly outside your four walls. And RFID gives us the data that basically shines, it's the light beam shining into the dark corners of the organization where we didn't have that visibility before. So now we can get visibility right out to the edge of the enterprise to where, well, for instance, a lot of times you lose visibility when you've gone past your last manufacturing machine and your items go over to staging, right? They get staged, they get shipped from there, and you kind of lose visibility there. You get a lot number, but that's about it. With RFID, we now get a physical count of every one of those as they go out the door, out the perimeter of the door, and then possibly even as they go on the truck, depending on how the equipment is set up. And this gives us real-time visibility into what's going on, as you mentioned. This also can play into that digital twin because you've got operators signed into the forklifts that they're running, and you know where those are. Again, they just drove through a dock door. You can use this for near misses or potential safety opportunities within your plant, rolling back the clock, if you will, on the digital twin to see who was where and who might have seen something.
Thanks, Mark. Chris, at Seagull, you get exposed to many different verticals. Can you talk through some of the use cases you're seeing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think like Mark said, we look at RFID and that's our focus here is really a foundational layer, right, for digital twins and for other things that we'll get into, but really for digital twins, having that real-time visibility and the automation as well that RFID provides is really good data for a digital twin, right? So, we have we work across the supply chain, so we're printing labels, right? That's the birth of the digital twin, and suddenly, you're really creating a digital version of a physical object at that point, right? At the labeling point, and so we're tracking it from there all the way through the supply chain. Less so within the four walls, but our view of a digital twin is really the full end-to-end visibility of those products, especially in food. And I think, Anna, you mentioned this too, but tracking temperature excursions and things like that, allowing you to act quickly as your digital twin reports some kind of anomaly, then you can start to act on it and pull that product before it really becomes a safety issue. We're also seeing it in retail as well, and really just predicting anomalies in the supply chain where or being able to revealing anomalies in the supply chain where maybe a truck didn't deliver what it was supposed to deliver or it didn't deliver at all, and then we can take a look at what that impact is downstream going across the supply chain. So lots of things there. I think also some of the regulatory stuff we're talking about, the digital product passport in the EU is important for that too, especially when it comes to the serialized use cases like electronic vehicle batteries and others. That really important that the RFID foundational layer is very important to get that that foundational layer so you have that real-time automated data flowing into your digital twin system.
Chris, it's interesting. I'll just ask you another question on top of what you just talked about. You talked about visibility and maybe anticipating some things that could be avoided. how do you think digital twins help communication between different entities and different stakeholders within the supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one example, I think we're going to get this in later, but in my opinion, AI, right? I mean, it really is a match made in heaven for item level data, RFID item level data, and the needs of AI that needs that data. And so we're automating some of those alerts and some of those, enabling some of those the so-called agents to take action, right? So that enables to create those alerts, make sure people are informed of what these disruptions are, and then, and then taking action as well.
New, based on what Mark and Chris have shared, what is the actual impact of RFID on supply chain automation? And maybe you can talk a little bit more about decision making.
Yes. So as like now I will use a different client, like Amtrak is one client, right? And Amtrak is the US largest passenger railroad company in United States. And so they are manufacturing the tracks, they have the concrete ties, and they got thousands of different kind of assets, right? And these assets belongs to heavy industry. The one CWR, continuous welded rail, is 70,000 pounds in weight. And so it is being manufactured, it is being loaded, it is being distributed, it being offloaded on the right of way. And then again, it is being installed by the track laying machines. And then the monthly geometry car is doing the ground penetrating radars are there, and including RFID, right? So we have tagged from the source itself at the manufacturing part with the RFID tag on the steel parts, and we have buried the RFID tags in the concrete, so you can't see them, but they are there. And in the whole supply chain, they are seeing it. And before we brought RFID, just in the Northeast corridor, which is the New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, New York, that area, they were losing close to $45 million worth of a quarter visibility of their assets. And RFID improves that one, right? Other projects we are doing it for the Malaysia, where they have the 250 million cigarette packs and Malaysia does not manufacture the cigarettes, so all are being imported. So we have the 24 different custom houses, when the cigarettes are coming. And from there, they have the warehouses, then they have the distribution centers, then they have the retail stores at the end of the day. And government was losing close to $4 billion worth of their revenue from the taxation itself. So now so that's the RFID side. Now, if you come to the artificial intelligence or digital twin, as you know, artificial intelligence is data hungry. Machine learning is data hungry. RFID produce millions of reads in a day on a large scale, right? So we have date and time, we got the location, and we got the identification. Now, on the basis of that, we can do the optimization, we can do the better forecasting, we have the real-time insights into it, and we can run different kind of modeling, what if scenario, like what Chris was saying, suddenly let's say surge happens, right? Let's say the tariffs are dropped, so everybody from China is pushing their hardware shipping to the United States. Now the surge is there, and how many containers I need, how many forklift, how many pallet, this and that, and what if the tariffs are higher, everything goes down. Then so you can run different kind of scenarios. You can do the modeling on the digital twin itself, and digital twin always need the real-time sensors data. If you don't have it, digital twin is no good. So the same thing on artificial, and digital twin feeds the data. It acts as a cornerstone for the artificial intelligence and the machine learning aspect of it. So it's like whole ecosystem is there, and RFID is playing a very pivotal role. And one other thing I would say, now we are also having the sensor RFID tags. So not only telling who I am, is telling what is my temperature, what is my humidity. And in the weapons control also, we are using those things when the weapons are moving from one place to another, and different places they are being stored. In the ammunition centers, we are putting the sensor RFID tags, because if the temperature go higher than that, or humidity go higher than that, the barrels start rusting and casing start going bad. So different, and again, so RFID, digital twin, artificial is a part of the story, and then we bring the BIM as well, building information management system, all are tied together in the digital twin.
Thanks, Anu. We've all given some great examples of some use cases. What I'd like to do now is kind of pivot, because as we develop these use cases, we oftentimes have some takeaways. Sometimes they're lessons learned, sometimes there are some best practices, and because digital twins is relatively new, AI certainly is relatively new as well. I'd like to ask each of you to kind of think through some of your implementations and maybe talk for a few minutes about some of those lessons learned and best practices.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we'll probably say something very similar, but obviously, when I said this before, and I say this for every IT project, is don't start with the technology, of course. And then, change management, obviously, it's something we struggle with. These are big implementations. And if the change management's not in place, then there's some real issues to implementation and adoption. But I think one thing is, more specifically for RFID that we find as we implement RFID programs is zone clarity, right? And making sure, RFID can read across walls, and it can read, wherever you want at 30 feet, 20 feet, 2 feet. And so making sure that you have those zones well defined, if you're doing a digital twin that's based on zones. And I think someone asked a very good question in the last panel we did around serialization. Make sure your RFID EPC's codes encoding is unique. I mean, that is absolutely critical. We see it time and again where that is not the case.
Thanks, Chris. Go ahead, Mark.
All right. Yeah, all great points. I think with the change management is identification of an internal champion to help drive that change is crucial, especially in some of the kind of more blue collar environment. People often are resistant to things they don't understand, and so I think educating your user base on the folks who interact with the system every day on what the purposes of this are is going to be very, very important in getting their buy-in and ultimately getting them on board with wanting to get this done, right? And wanting to make it happen. Because if they don't understand it, they're going to assume it's just some complicated thing being pushed down from corporate to make their lives more difficult, right? Now, some of that is also on the implementation. So, I mean, for instance, in a lot of our deployments, I do my best not to burden the user with any change at all. We simply monitor their movements, and then that all gets reported to the cloud and gets into the digital twin, right? And it's a completely, yes, it's passive technology, but it's a completely passive solution too. Many times we're antennas are sight unseen, readers are sight unseen. We just want the folks to do the job they're there to do. We give them in exchange for adding these RFID tags into the mix, we give them much more accurate data as to where to find their assets and their goods and their people and whatever it is they're tracking with that particular system.
Thanks, Mark. And
yep.
Anu, do you have some lessons learned to share?
Oh, I think we all have many. Yeah, so I will have the different flavor of what Chris and Mark had already talked about. A couple of things. One is we call the rain flooding, right? Lots of data keep coming in and it's going to overwhelm your system. So what Chris said, first, make sure you have your EPC unique or the series is unique, so it's not conflicting with other random or orphan RFID tags, right? And secondly, how easily at the edge itself, at the RFID read itself, you can stop the data so it did not go to your network and overwhelming the system. And some clients, we deal with it, and even though it is just a hex value, before it goes to server, it got to be encrypted. So everything we are reading, including the hex value, we are encrypting it, and not just we are having the hard-coded encrypted value, rather we are keep changing the public-private key between the server and the readers, right? So we have encryption and what kind of overhead it can bring it to the system, encrypting, decrypting other side. And then you have to make sure the readers, let's say you have the MAC IDs of the readers. So you only accepting the read from that. So nobody is trying to send you the, again, the data, any malicious data is coming and you're trying to avoid that. And so and then we are dealing with the different client when we talk about the software side of it, RFID software side of it, then the cloud security, data security, network security, right? All these things come in play. And sometimes people, forget about it. And when you're dealing with the large enterprises such as Amtrak, which we have a client, and that like I'm dealing with the different 13, 14 different teams, and their objectives are different. And before even we deploy any RFID reader, antenna, or handheld, we have to give the a piece of them. And they are doing the all penetration testing, trying to make sure it's not hackable easily. Even though somebody can say, hey, it's a hex value, but they do not treat RFID data differently than any other PII data. So everything got to be encrypted, well taken care of it. So yeah, the other extra the key points we have learned it, and we are, I mean, is lifelong journey is there of learning, but yes, these are some key points I have taken.
In light of the time, I want to make sure we get time for questions and answers. So I'm going to ask one more question, and I'm just going to ask each of you to maybe spend about a minute talking a little bit about, in the world of regulations and compliance considerations and things like that. What are things, what are things that are coming up? Chris, you mentioned DPP a little bit. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the regulations that are coming up that you think will be well served with RFID and digital twins.
Yeah. As I mentioned, I think the digital product passport. I mean, we're already seeing it. We're already engaged in a couple of projects where the DPP for apparel and also for EV vehicle batteries, like I mentioned. But RFID really lends itself to those supply chains, and then obviously all of the benefits you get from RFID that you can implement in terms of the visibility. But also all of the upstream traceability as well. Right? When we're talking about the apparel sector, if we are labeling, some of the primary materials, the cotton and the and some of the synthetic materials as it comes out of the factory, and then we're tracking those downstream as well. So being able to link all that together, with RFID is just giving that really granular data upstream and downstream for that digital product passport requirement. The other one we're talking about, which we didn't mention, was the FSMA 204. And that FSMA 204 is around food. That's a US based requirement. And we're seeing a lot of interest in RFID there as well. Really, it really simplifies the capture of it. Like Anu mentioned, when you're dealing with food, there's temperature excursions and things like that. So you can add that to the data, to the model, the digital twin model that you're creating. But it's really about automation in that sense, right? Is making sure that those products are flowing very quickly through that supply chain, while still creating valuable digital twin model. The food industry, a lot of times what we find is that they'll still send it out even if the RFID, even if the labeling's not working or things like that are not working, or they didn't read it, right? It's still going. You cannot slow this supply chain down. So there are a couple of the regulation and compliance things that I'm seeing.
Thanks. Mark, Chris talked a little bit about regulations. We've heard a lot about best practices. What about scaling digital twin ecosystems with AIDC technologies? Can you talk a little bit about scaling and where we need to be thinking?
Sure. Yeah, I think, I see a huge opportunity in public transit. We've seen passports start to get RFID enabled, and now we've got the Real ID. That's a huge opportunity, I think, for RFID right there, and speeding people on their way, right? And in this case, the people are the goods, as it would apply to a normal supply chain. And then, of course, if you want to talk about scale, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention what UPS has done in the last year. They've got a system that is giving them absolutely massive amounts of data. I had some discussions a little bit with them, and their challenge with the digital twin isn't quite what everybody else's is. Everybody else is trying to, mostly digital twin is used for historical events so you can analyze using your ERP against what's going to happen at this time next year, and you set up for trends, right? UPS wants to use this to prevent a late package. If they're looking at it historically, they're already too late. That package has already missed the delivery deadline, right? So theirs is one of a little bit different flavor, having to blend in, I think, things like traffic incursions plus a little bit of AI kind of analyzing this, as well as the digital twin itself and whoever's overseeing that. But yeah, there's just, when it comes to opportunities of scale, I think UPS is doing a heck of a job with what they've got going on, and I anticipate the other shippers are going to be following here not too long. We'll see.
Thanks, Mark. All right, I think we've come to our Q&A session. So I'd like to open up the Q&A to anyone on the call that would like to ask a question. Bethany?
Yeah, so we'll get started here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, if you have a question, you can fill it out through the Q&A application at the bottom of the screen. So our first question for today is, you've mentioned RFID a lot today, but what other sensors can be used for digital twinning?
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking who we wanted to direct that to. I mean, any of the IoT sensors that we're using today are applicable for this. You can use temperature, humidity, shock, vibration, chemical sensitivity, light sensitivity. I've seen applications where we had to have light sensors to know if a container had been opened while it was at sea. I mean, there's just all sorts of interesting data points you can collect that help build a better picture of what's going on.
Mark, or Anu, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Anu, did you want to go ahead and add?
Yes, I mean, in IoT, right, any sensor could participate. Like, for example, we are working on a large metro implementation project in India, where we are bringing the different kind of IoT sensors for the digital twin. So we are using the RFID, BLE, LoRaWAN, and the camera vision systems too, right? So we can have the acoustic sensors, we have the vibration sensors, we have the, like whether it's they are going even the camera vision system, whether somebody gonna do the suicide or somebody carrying the weapon or not, right? So all this data, you bring it together, you fuse it, and better utilized for whatever modeling, whatever the better insights or decision making, you want to use it in the digital twin using different kind of IoT sensors.
I would also add barcode, right? Just yeah, you can also go more complex, but you can also simplify and use a barcode too. So there is
and vision as well.
Yes.
Okay, Bethany, what else?
All right, so the next question we have here is, how is the medical equipment manufacturer industry utilizing RFID as a nuance to newly developed equipment prior to sale to the healthcare industry?
So maybe I'll just tell, I know there is a regulation in the United States which is coming. They are mandating for all manufacturer medical, they have the different grades. So let's say somebody's putting the, stent or the heart valve or something, and manufacturer has a defect. So they want to track it all the way to the patient within 72 hours. If there is a recall, which hospital, which supply chain track, and which patient had that heart valve, which had the faulty thing, right? So they want the complete supply chain, and that goes to the different other medical industry has different kind of assets. I mean, assets are there, and the pharmaceuticals industry have there too. So definitely some in United States that's coming, and it could be true for other countries as well.
Thanks. Mark, did you want to add anything?
I mean, you've got the work that's going on with the in the medical industry with folks like let me just say the suppliers of surgical kits, right, that have been using RFID for a number of years. I think that's going to become more standardized and open source, if you will, so that all the players in that supply chain can report data back up and have meaningful context to it. That's been kind of a challenge. You get to the firewall with a report of a read, and what's the firewall going to do with that? Today they don't know, and so we're trying to shape all of these things and give meaningful data to these events.
Thanks. Bethany, do we have any other questions?
We have another question here. How challenging is the transformation when connecting the physical and digital worlds?
So maybe I'll just give some philosophical answer for it. As you know, the Taj Mahal or the Empire State Building or any of these monumental structures, they were built in the brain before they were erected ever on the ground, right? So it's all planning. So, and the vision planning you have it, the better you can plan it, understand all the components. Let's say when we build a building or a house, we collect all the component, drywall, brakes, lumber, this and that. Same thing. So digital twin and RFID or any IT solution for that matter, it involves different components. The better we can understand, better we can vision it, we can better, build a team who can integrate them together, and then we can have the journey from there.
Yeah, so I'd just add to Anna's answer, say it's easy if you do it that way. It should be easy, but you can overcomplicate it, of course.
One of the technologies I think that offers a lot of promise to that, specifically transforming the physical world into the digital world. We heard a number of years ago about smart dust. I don't know if you remember this one, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's basically little microcomputers, and they had all sorts of sensors equipped, right? You had humidity, you had vibration, you had temperature, and you would scatter these throughout your facility, and they were very low cost, scattered throughout your facility, and they would start reporting back data and all kinds of data. And so the biggest challenge in creating that digital model of your physical environment is having software capable of handling the large amounts of data you're going to receive. You need to aggregate it, smooth it, make it make sense, without having to read a million lines of code to get there, right? People want to see a pretty picture with a red blinking if there's a problem, or green if everything's fine, and so you need to have your software capable of interpreting these events well.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank all of our speakers today, Chris, Mark, and Anu. Thank you so much for bringing us so much information and your experience. I'd also like to provide contact information for AIM if you are a member. We're glad that you joined us. If you're not a member and you're interested in joining AIM, please contact us. I'd also like to let you know that if you enjoyed today's webinar, tomorrow we are hosting a webinar called RFID Revolution, Boosting Efficiency and Accuracy in Retail Fashion. Another great topic for RFID. I'd like to thank you for attending today, and we hope you have a great one.